In your experience, what do you think about documentation? What is your view on this?
The entire civilization that we are part of has grown and come to this stage, because what if somebody in the past said, you don't have to document this. This was a really nice conversation. Let's just let it be. We would be nowhere.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast. My name is Jana Krishnan. I'm your host, the founder of the Daily Lawyer. Today is yet another episode in our daily story series. And I'm truly so excited for this episode because I feel like I was manifesting this and it's coming to fruition. So I'm so grateful for that. But before I speak about our guest today, who's a very well-known social media personality, influencer, somebody I have learned a lot from, and I kept listening to his talks and his reels, and then I also read his book. But before I do introduce our guest today, I want to take a minute to speak about the Daily Story series. And actually, it's been receiving a lot of love from all of you. So thank you so much for that. Please keep continuing to support the podcast. The Daily Story series is something I started as a way to make the conversations around the law a lot more relatable to non-lawyers as well. Why I started the Daily Lawyer is to make legal information accessible, simple, practical, and relevant. Today, everybody looks at the law as something which is complicated. There's this inherent negative psychological bias against lawyers. And what is the consequence of that is that people really don't approach lawyers very easily. And we want to protect you who are or will be our clients. We genuinely want to protect you from suffering any losses in your business or in your life. And that is why we need to be consulted at a more primary stage and not after all the problems have taken place. I thought it will be easier to listen to this from a neutral point of view, right? From a person who's neither a lawyer, just a business owner like you and me, who can come onto the podcast and speak about what is it that they face, some losses, some bad decisions that they made simply because they did not have the correct legal information, or then they did not have somebody to guide them. And then what did they do? How did they sort of improve? So this really is the genesis of the Daily Story series, and this is what I hope to bring to all of you through these conversations. And now, without much ado, we'll go right into the conversation. Hi, Ankur. Welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast.
Thank you so much, Jana. Thank you for having me.
You actually don't need any introduction, but for those who are probably living under a rock, let me just quickly run through your you have this plethora of achievements, and I've condensed it into one paragraph, and I hope I've done justice to you. So Ankur Warikoo is an internet entrepreneur, and he's based in India. He's also a best-selling author. He's a wildly successful content creator and a legitimate influencer. I say legitimate because I have been influenced by him, and I would consider myself not being easily influenced. From being on the path to being a physicist and pursuing a PhD in physics in the US, to moving back to India and founding and building and scaling and selling multiple businesses, Ankur has seen it all. Today, through his social media channels, Ankur aims at making awareness cool, which is why I think he's the perfect guest on the Daily Lawyer podcast, because we are all about raising people's awareness about the law so that they can make better decisions in business and life. So Ankur, welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. That was a very kind, almost embarrassing introduction. So I hope I do justice to it. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Take your time. Okay, Ankur, I just alluded to the fact that you have built and scaled and bought and sold businesses. But if you can just, people know you, but if you can just in like 2 minutes, take people through what do you do, where are you, what does the company do, like everything about you.
It's been a long journey, but in a nutshell, Jana, I've been an entrepreneur since 2009. And I've had the joy, privilege, absolute honor of running multiple startups, working with really smart people. And I did that till 2019 in a formal fashion, where I was part of venture funded companies, and I was doing basically what startup people do. And in 2019, I stepped down as the CEO of my last startup, nearby.com, decided to figure what I wanted to do next. 2020 is when I turned 40, so it felt like a moment. And COVID happened, and I started creating content, which I had been for a really long while, but not with the intensity that I do today. And here I am. So today I split my time between content creation, which is what some of your audiences may encounter on social media. I'm running my next startup, which is in the education space. So it's online education for specifically college kids or young professionals. And then I spend a fair bit of time investing and mentoring first-time entrepreneurs.
Wow, that was a very succinct answer. So either you practiced it a lot or you're like a really super clear thinker, but it was a really quick answer. I have to learn from that. Now, you are not one business owner, but you own multiple businesses. So what would you say are your top 3 priority items when it comes to business?
Number one would certainly be people. I am very, very passionate about building the right kind of teams and working with the right kind of people. So for me, I take my own sweet time to find these people. I have a very different, distinct process to identify who I want to work with and why. And it's very unlike what most people go through if they would go through a traditional recruitment process, even in a startup for that matter. So that's number one, and that's the predominant focus. Number two, I'm a student of routine, I'm a student of process, I'm a student of system. So I love building everything down to a process, a system, and a resource. And all of my energy after I pick the right people is then to just set the right expectations, design the right processes, give them the right systems and tools, and then just let them be. And the third one, which is always a focus, is to make sure that every roadblock that they might be facing, which doesn't allow them to become the best version of who they can be, is my responsibility to clear. Because I happen to be in a position where I can exercise the most influence and authority to get things done, perhaps at a faster pace. So I would just do anything and everything in my right to clear the bottlenecks of individuals that are working, so that there is zero friction and frankly no excuse for not doing what you could do or where you can be. And these remain the top 3, and that hasn't changed in the last decade as well. So I continue to do it because it's worked well for me.
Yeah, I think it's the most you focused clearly on the most fundamental things that any business or any, not just business, even life. I think your advice is also for life. But you also gave me a good segue into my next question, which is you mentioned about systems, and you mentioned about routines, and you mentioned about doing everything that you possibly can to make sure that your people who work for you, who work with you, whatever, they are able to work in a very smooth manner, right? Now, you actually spoke to my heart when you said that, but I'm coming at it from a documentation angle, because I really believe that documentation is very important because it sets expectations. In your experience, what do you think about documentation? Because my experience with most people, whether they are in startups or they are in little more established businesses, is that they do not pay any attention to documentation. So what is your view on this?
For me, documentation is actually a form of writing, Jenna, and I'm a big fan of writing because writing does 3 things. One is, of course, it brings a lot of clarity to your own thought and structure, because when you're just thinking, it's just so easy to think, but it's also very wild to think because your thoughts are all over the place, they're not structured, and thus there is cohesion that may be missing. So when you start writing, you actually bring structure to that thought. So that's number one. Number two, if you've done a good job of writing, then it's also very easy to communicate with others, because then you're not rambling, you're not going all over the place. And if you're not practiced well, and if you're not well aware, then that writing, which is a asynchronous task, and you're doing it by yourself, and then you share it with somebody else, allows them to also consume it at their pace and figure what they want to take away from that. And I'm a big fan of asynchronous conversations. I actually prefer not to have synchronous conversations as much as I can. I don't like getting on calls. I don't like speaking to people in real time, because then people just tend to talk random things just because they want to show that they're smart and intelligent and thoughtful about it, when the truth is they're just thinking on the fly. So writing allows for that. And then third, which is clearly a part of my DNA, is it ensures transfer and longevity. When you document things, it allows for it to travel and not become just a moment. So it becomes an artifact. And frankly, that's the way the entire civilization that we are part of has grown and come to this stage. Because what if somebody in the past said, you don't have to document this was a really nice conversation, let's just let it be? We would be nowhere. We would be terrible learners. We'll have to start all over again.
That's
and whether
true.
It's books, whether it's scriptures, whether it's processes, tools, or even for that matter, faith or religion or practices, all of that has just been a form of documentation that's traveled across years. So I remain a big fan of that. And for these 3 reasons, at least I stress a lot upon documentation. I document a lot of my thoughts. I do not try and remember anything that is by design a core way of how I work. I do not on purpose try to remember anything. So everything is on my calendar. Everything is in a notebook. I'll always carry one. I'll always be a writing person, and everything has to be in some way a combination of technology and just plain traditional things that will they'll just remind me what I have to do and what I ought to know.
Yeah. And then when it comes to documentation, let's say from a legal angle, because like I was having a client of mine, they are it's a financial services company. It's a small company, but they grow quite fast during COVID. And it was all random. Everything was random, like hiring is random, firing is, because, you're just reacting. And it was driving me nuts because I would send a draft and then somebody else would do. So I'm a big proponent of having systems in any organization, no matter how small you are, from a solopreneur to however big you get. Now, from that angle, where do you stand when it comes to documentation?
I again believe it's necessary, because for the same reason, either you have to communicate internally or you have to communicate externally. And if you document, then you're just making that communication simpler. For example, if you are just maintaining your books really well, when I say books, I mean your accounting books really well, and you have a record of what's your revenue, what's your expense, why did it go into that category, when did it happen, who was accountable for that, then you don't have to be worried about anything. The tax guys will come, this guy will come. And the same way, if you have created your legal structure in your company the right manner, you've gone through the compliances, you are registered on your taxes, you have everything that you ought to, you're raising invoices in the right systems, you're making sure that your GST is filed in, you're making sure that your TDS is deposited, you're making sure that your advanced tax is deposited, you're making sure that all of your articles of association, memorandum of articles, all of these are in place, you have them handy, you know where to go and why not. It just makes for very, very efficient working. And I don't think it is a fear of the legal system that drives people away. I just feel that they are inherently either lazy or disorganized, that they do not think that this is how it should be done. Because to me, at least, and I'm not being dismissive of others, to me, this is table stakes. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
Why would you not do everything as per the law? Like, why would you risk anything? Because the downside is massive. It's infinite. You could be wiped out or caught yourself into some stupid legal battle. And the upside of doing it is quantifiable, and it's at best, a few here and there decimal points or percentage points.
Yeah, my God. I wish I am going to take this. I'm going to quote you on it if you don't mind. And I'm going to plaster it all over my feed, because this is truly what we are trying to tell everybody. We had somebody come in whose company was written off the books because for 4 years they had not paid tax, and the proprietor had no idea that his whoever accounts person and imagine everything that you work for is written off overnight, and they're weeping and they're doing all of that, and you're thinking, oh my God, why would you do this? So anyway, now that you spoke about the downside and all of that, have you ever faced in the last decade and a half, close to a decade and a half of you being an entrepreneur, have you faced any issues or losses in your business or life because you probably did not know, you did not have the right legal advice, or you did not have the right guidance, which with a little bit of advice, with little bit of due diligence, you may not have done that?
Not quite. I think by the same order of what I mentioned, Jenna, I'm very particular about these things. So I very rarely have found myself on the other side of the law. But I have been, of course, as part of running startups, been in legal issues, which I wish weren't there. So we found ourselves in excise tax issues. We found ourselves, we incidentally had to fight for the legal custody of the name Groupon because somebody in India had registered that domain name groupon.co.in when Groupon entered India. And we had to go through that entire legal hassle. And we were very clear that we are not going to settle and we're not going to pay this person. We'll want to win the legal right way. So I remember showing up in settlement discussions, negotiations, and of course then the final hearing, which went in our favor. But that went on for a year and a half. We currently in conversation with the income tax department, because when Paytm bought into Nearby in 2017, the income tax believes that it wasn't done in the right manner and we owe income tax to the government, while we maintain that that wasn't the case. It was actually a capital loss and not a capital gain. But nothing that we have consciously done to short circuit anything or to have a shortcut in our life. But yeah, I've been part of.
But these seem more like accidental. It happens because you're running a business. It doesn't seem like something that you missed. One of my pet peeves is that people come to us at the end, right? After all the mess is over, they're like, "Oh, this happened and that happened." And I do believe that it's important to get legal representation right from the beginning, before when you start your business. But of course, a lot of people do not share my opinion. I want to know where you stand. Do you think that for a startup, it's important to have a legal team, or rather, at what stage of a startup, or do you think it is important? Why not? Why only startup? Anything in business and life. Why only startup?
Yeah, I think there are levels to it. One, I genuinely believe that the law is designed in such a manner that civilians may not be the best individuals to take charge of it. And it's not because lawyers want to earn their money or anything like that, but there is a certain mindset that a lawyer brings in that is a unique combination of risk and reward that not everybody has, but they are trained in that. It's almost like a software engineer. Not everybody can be a software engineer because they're trained in databases and logic, which somebody may struggle to. So you can't be like, oh, everybody can become a software engineer. No, the same way that everybody can't become a lawyer. So I would argue that, did I use the word argue? I would argue that...
this is osmosis.
Yeah, I would argue that in the beginning, you don't need to have an internal legal team. At least I wouldn't. I would have an external lawyer on a retainer, which basically just ensures that all the basic compliances, the checks, the balances are in order. And should there be an event that you perhaps did not anticipate or just came along, you could engage that same lawyer for a bigger scope, or perhaps go to an expert, because the reality also is that not all lawyers are the same. There are lawyers who specialize in very specific law areas. So you would have a very different lawyer for tax, very different lawyer for maybe compliances, very different lawyer for foreign direct investment or overseas direct investment, very different lawyer for something else. And you would need their help and expertise. So at that point of time, go in and use them. And if my ballpark is that if your business nature is such that you're signing a contract almost every day, then maybe have a legal team inside. Like Nearby was a great example. We were signing contracts every hour because we were onboarding merchants and we were telling them, hey, you're going to come on board. Here are the things that we will insure. We actually owe you money for everything that we sell, which is your money. So here is how the money will flow. Here is what we are liable for. Here's what you're liable for. Here's what we're not liable for. Here's what you're not liable for. So it's a fairly comprehensive legal contract that we're getting in. And every single hour we were doing that. And while a lot of them were standardized, but there was a fair bit of customization that had to happen almost on a daily basis. And that can't happen with some sales guy just writing it down on a piece of paper and saying, ho gaya. It has to be vetted and gone through. And that's where we build that internal law team.
Yeah, okay. This was like a really, really good answer. I can see that your years of experience in all of this is coming through. And I'm so grateful to you for giving this answer, because again, I'm going to shamelessly use this snippet for everyone, because it's something that I want to say, but if you say it, it'll probably have more effect. That's what has been your biggest challenge in getting legal help?
Personally, the biggest challenge has been to find the right lawyer. And when I say the right lawyer, it doesn't mean from an expertise.
Yeah.
having a good lawyer is a very important selection, because at the end of it, this lawyer is going to represent you. And that doesn't mean your case, it often means you. And that is not a trivial selection to make, because very few people end up representing you. They'll be doing their job, right? So if you hire let's say, an accountant, they will be taking care of accounts. That has nothing to do with you. That's the company accountant. You hire a software engineer, that girl or boy will be coding. Nothing to do with you. You hire a marketing person, taking care of marketing. You hire a lawyer, and it's possible that if you are a director, a founder, or someone who is a key management professional, you will be represented by that individual. And that becomes a whole new ball game, because now they have to know you in and out. How would you respond? How would you react? What kind of words would you use? So on. And whether for a personal reason or for a company reason, my biggest struggle has been finding those lawyers, because you're essentially finding someone with the right wavelength, irrespective of whether they know their law or not.
Yeah. I truly understand what you say, because even we don't, like, just like it's difficult for the client to find us, we also have to find the right client, I suppose. It's a very sort of symbiotic relationship. And just like you said, yes, we represent you, because it is not only you. If there's a loss in your business, it affects your family, it affects everything. If there's a problem in your family, if there's your somebody, your sister, your mother-in-law, they're having any kind of domestic issues, it affects you and your work. So, we are involved in business and life. That's so true. I'm so happy that you said that. Okay, I think this is my last question for this segment, and that is, what would you think are the biggest pain points that you have suffered, or probably not just you, maybe you can, because you mentor a lot of businesses as well. So what are some of the biggest pain points that you see people suffer from a legal or a compliance point of view? And what is the kind of service, or what is the kind of product or something that you can see that, because honestly, we are all on a mission to make our system better, our legal system better, because we can all agree that it can use improvements. So what is it that you would, as a consumer, okay, let's call you a consumer, what is it that you would feel, I wish this was there so I'll get more clarity?
I think the biggest pain point, which is not really a pain point, but more of a mindset thing, is going back to what I said initially, Jenna. People are just scared of venturing out into the law world. They believe it's not for them, and they believe that it's something that, if can be avoided, should be avoided to the maximum. While the approach that I would argue works is become a friend of law. And if you become a friend of law, then you really don't have to worry about anything. And the question that I often ask is, laws have been designed to keep the society in check, to basically weed out bad actors. And the only question you're asking is, am I doing anything that makes me a bad actor? That's it. That's just as simple as that. Whether it is about wearing a helmet while you're driving a bike, or wearing your seatbelt when you're driving a car, or not jumping the red light, to filing your returns on time, actually going through your taxes in order, not trying to produce fake bills, just doing things which you have to at some point hide. And if you do that, you'll be surprised at how easy it will be to live while being compliant. Compliance will not even be something that you have to actively think about. It will just come by order, by just design.
Naturally. Yeah.
And that is when you will realize that law is not a scary thing. And I wish, I create a lot of content on personal finance, and I can see so many similarities there, where people are scared of investing, they're scared of how to use their money, while the principles are just fundamental. You have to make your money grow at a rate that is higher than inflation, which is eating into your money. That's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. But if you think about, oh my God, I have to become rich overnight, I have to become a millionaire by I'm 25 or 30, I have to retire by the time I'm 31 and so on, you will make mistakes, because you will go through things that you ought not to, and that'll be game over. Same way for the law as well. So I think that's the only thing. I wish that there are people, channels, sources that demystify what the law of the land is and break it down to such an extent that it's not to be scared of.
Oh my God. Thank you for giving me a plug to insert the Daily Lawyer, because that's the entire idea of what we're trying to do. It is to change the mindset about the law. We are not sharks. We are here to help. Most of us are here to serve and to make people, like you said, more compliant. But it's not just being compliant. It is also, the law gives you a lot of concessions as well. Like as a business owner, you may know, like for example, there's so many schemes, Startup India, Udyam, MSME, so many of those, and they give you concessions. So you save money and you're able to take advantage of a lot of things, which you like you get tax breaks, so it's only if you go to somebody who can tell you, listen, yeah, you can do this. I'm not just protecting you, but I'm also helping you grow in a way that you probably have not thought of. So it's always better to go to somebody like any of us who are here to help you, because we are not pocketing that money, right? We are just taking our fees. You guys do whatever you want, but come to us because we are here to serve. So yes, thank you for that plug. Now I'm done with this segment, which is all the law segment, and the second half is what I do for myself because I love it, and it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I ask you 5 of something, 4 of something, 3 of something, like that.
Okay, all right.
So 5, I'm waiting for this answer from you, which is 5 productivity tips that you would recommend.
Number 1, write everything down, because that helps you remember and forget at the same time. Number 2, use a calendar. A calendar is a great way for you to know what needs to be done and when and why. Number 3, mute all your notifications on your phone, all of them. Number 4, read your emails in batches and not as and when they come, because it can be a time suck and the next thing you know, you're in it. And number 5 is get a good night's sleep. I don't think there's anything better for your productivity.
I'm feeling very productive right now. I feel like I do all 5. Yay! It's been amazing. Okay, no, I don't know whether I'm productive, but I do all 5, so I'm proud of myself. Okay, 4 books that you'd recommend. This is like, I don't know how you're going to do it, because every time I see 31 books, then 15 books, then 10, then 5, then I don't know. I don't think you've ever given 4 in your carousels.
No, I haven't. But if I had to, I'd certainly say Atomic Habits, because that's a great book. I would definitely say Psychology of Money, because that's a great book about money. I would certainly say Rework, one of my favorite books. And I would finally say a slightly hard book, may not be applicable for everyone at that age, is Courage to be Disliked.
Yeah. All 4, yes. I bought Courage to be Disliked because I saw it on one of your carousels, which asked us, you said the top 10 books that have influenced you or whatever. So yeah. Incidentally, because we're talking about books, I want to tell you that I bought your book at the airport when I was struggling with whether I should start TDL or not. And I saw your book at the airport, so I bought it. And then I just opened it, and then whatever I opened was like, you said something about following dreams and things like that. Like it was like a whole, like 2 pages. Okay, you're written about your story and things like that. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is like really speaking to me. And then I read the foreword where you said it's like you play book cricket with it. And I don't know whether you've ever read the book Illusions by Richard Bach. It's one of my favorite books. And have you read Illusions?
No, I haven't.
Then I was going to give you a reference, but if you haven't, then maybe I should give you a reference after you've read it. So Illusions, essentially, there is a handbook for messiahs, which opens, it comes up with a quote, and then it tells you, it's like very apt for that situation. So when I read that book, it was like as if it was like a sign, okay, go ahead, just do it. So I owe you that. I owe you for that.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Thank you. 3, because you work with all of the young graduates and all of that. So 3 tips that you would give young graduates or like young professionals, let's say.
Number 1, don't go after impact in the first 1 year. Go after learning. Number 2, ask a lot more questions than be eager to give out a lot more answers. And number 3, if you can choose, then always choose your manager, because that person is going to define almost everything about you.
Okay, I want to just unpack that a little bit. When you say if you can choose between what, like choose your manager over what?
Over your company, over your role, over your salary, over frankly anything.
Yeah. Choose your mentor. Is mentor? Oh, manager or mentor?
Manager
But
may
manager
not
is
be the
more
mentor.
apt. Yeah, that's true.
Manager is more because manager has a far direct influence over who you become as a professional, while a mentor may just indirectly influence it.
Yeah. And when you said don't go after impact in the first year, do people really go after impact? Because the first year you're only thinking money, or like, okay.
Oh no, every young kid that I speak to nowadays is like, I'm not making any impact. And like, how long has it been? Like 6 months. Like, who told you that you're supposed to? But they're in a hurry, and no fault of theirs, because they're used to getting everything that they want at the speed of thought.
Yeah. Oh wow, I'm feeling Jurassic. I don't think I am, but I'm feeling Jurassic. But okay. I don't know whether law students, I've never had law students coming and telling me I want impact. I have law students telling me it's too much to read. Make 2-minute video, na? 2-minute video you make. I said, Baba, imagine if this is the state. 2-minute video for an entire statute. Okay. 2 life lessons that you've learned so far.
Number 1, if I can't trust you, it doesn't matter how smart you are. And number 2, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Wow. I love the second one, but I'm a bit confused about the first one, because how does that become a life lesson that you've learned? Like you first trust and then don't go after how intelligent they are. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would say that if you can't build trust in the person opposite to you, then frankly, everything else is immaterial, because they're going to always second guess what you're up to and why. So it doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing and why you're doing, because the other person doesn't even trust you. So the focus of every interaction or every relationship is not to impress them, is to get them to trust you.
Wow. I'll remember that. On that note, the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
It was from my first manager, who said that if I can't trust you, it doesn't matter how smart you are.
Oh, is it?
That fundamentally changed everything. It was in 2006, and I still thank them to this day, where I became such a student of trust that almost everything that I do in life right now starts with trust, and it's worked immaculately for me.
Okay, wow. I'm going to remember that, because when you say it, I'm trying to think about a lot of things, and maybe also second guess a few decisions that I've recently made on this. So, but on that note, Ankur, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to say? Any last signing off notes to everybody? You've given fantastic answers, but if there's anything you want to say, it's all yours.
No, all good. I love the questions. It was a very different angle. So thank you for asking, and thank you for engaging.